The quiet boy with the broken sandals monsoon had not stopped for 3 days. Outside the small concrete home in Chennai, muddy water splashed against the broken steps. Inside, a thin boy sat near the window, watching the rain. His name was Sundar. He was 13 years old, quiet, polite, and mostly ignored by everyone at school. His sandals were too small, with one strap tied together with a rubber band. He never complained. Sundar was not the kind of boy who drew attention. He spoke softly. He walked quietly. And he listened more than he spoke, but that week, something strange happened at school. During the morning assembly. The principal announced a talent show. We want students to show what makes them special, the principal said. Sing, dance, tell jokes, anything. The students laughed and whispered. For many, it was a chance to shine. For others, it was a nightmare. Sundar said nothing. Later that day, 3 boys from class 10 surrounded him near the water pump. Hey, Sundar, one of them said, grinning. You should sing at the talent show. The others burst into laughter. Sundar looked up slowly. Me? He asked. Yes, you, the tallest one said. Everyone wants to hear your sweet voice. They laughed again. It was clear. They weren't being kind. It was a joke. A setup. Sundar smiled politely and walked away. But something in him felt strange. Not hurt, not angry. Just different. That night. His mother handed him a bowl of rice with curd and placed a small steel cup of water beside him. You're quiet today, she said. Some boys want me to sing at the talent show, he said softly. She paused. Will you? They were joking, he said. She didn't laugh. Instead, she touched his hand gently. Sometimes, she said, a joke hides a door. He didn't understand what she meant. But her words stayed with him all night. The next day, he stood in front of the class sign-up sheet. The list had dancers, a magician, 2 singers, and a mimicry act. His fingers trembled as he picked up the pen. He wrote his name. The moment he turned around, the 3 boys saw it. Wow, one of them said. He's really doing it. The others laughed, louder than before. News spread fast. By lunch, half the school had heard. Sundar Pichai, the quiet boy who never spoke above a whisper, is going to sing. Even the teachers seemed confused. Are you sure you want to do this? One of them asked gently. He nodded. But the truth was, he had no idea what he was doing. He had never sung in front of anyone, not even his family. He didn't even know what song to choose. That evening, he walked alone to a quiet alley near the temple where sound bounced off the walls. He stood there for a long time, just listening to the silence. Then he sang a line. Just one. His voice was shaky. But something inside him felt alive. He sang another. By the 4th line. His voice grew stronger. But then he heard clapping. He spun. Around, heart racing. An old man was standing behind him, wrapped in a shawl, smiling. Good tone. The man said. Sundar, single quotes. S face turned red. I'm sorry, he said. Don't be, the man replied. You have a gift, but you're scared of it. I don't know what I'm doing, Sundar said. Perfect, the man smiled. That means no one can tell you what's wrong. For the next few days, Sundar came to the same alley every evening. He sang. The old man listened. Sometimes he gave advice. Sometimes he said nothing at all. On the last evening before the show, the man handed him a small folded paper. Open tomorrow. Just before you go on stage, he said. What is it? Sundar asked. Something real, the man said. Then. He turned and walked away into the shadows. The day of the show arrived. The school auditorium was full. Parents, teachers, and students packed the rows. Lights flickered. Music blasted from speakers. The crowd clapped and cheered for every act. The magician made a flower disappear. A girl sang a film song perfectly. The mimic made everyone laugh. Then. The announcer spoke. Next, Sundar Pichai, singing. There was a pause. Someone in the back laughed. Sundar walked up slowly. He could feel his knees shake. His palms were sweaty. The microphone felt cold. He looked out. Students whispered. Some smirked. The 3 boys sat in the second row, grinning. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded paper. He opened it, thought there was just one line. You don't have to sound like anyone else. Just be honest. He looked up, took a deep breath, and sang. His voice was not perfect. Not loud. Not trained, but it was honest, And in that moment, everything changed, the room grew quiet, even the boys stopped smirking. Teachers leaned forward. Somewhere, near the back, a girl wiped her eyes. He finished the last line and stepped back. There was a long silence. Then one person stood, then another, then the whole room got a standing ovation, for the boy with broken sandals. But just as Sundar walked off stage, someone whispered in the dark corner backstage. That wasn't you singing, was it? Sundar turned around, his heart sank, standing there. Was the music teacher? And her face didn't look pleased. Asterisk. The voice in the shadows, applause still echoed in Sundar's ears as he stepped off the stage. For a few seconds, he couldn't even feel the floor under his feet. Everything was a blur, the lights, the heat, the rush of blood in his ears. For a boy who had spent most of his school life fading into the background, this sudden attention felt almost unreal. Students clapped him on the back. A few teachers smiled. Someone even said his voice was different, but moving. But right when Sundar allowed himself a quiet breath of relief, a sharp voice pierced through the noise like a needle through cloth. That wasn't you singing. Was it? He turned sharply, standing in the shadows near the backstage curtain was Miss Rayalakshmi, the school's longtime music teacher. She was respected, feared, and often misunderstood. Her hair was pulled tight into a bun, and her arms were folded across her chest as if she had just caught someone stealing exam answers. Excuse me? Sundar asked softly. She stepped forward. I've taught music in this school for 22 years. I've heard every voice that's ever passed through these halls. Your voice on that stage didn't sound like a beginner's, not like a boy who's never trained. Sundar swallowed. I wasn't trained. She narrowed her eyes. So, you're telling me you've never taken a lesson? Never sung before? He shook his head. Just in my head. And alone. Miss Rayalakshmi studied him. Then, to his surprise, her expression changed. Not to a smile, but to something more unreadable. Maybe curiosity. Maybe concern? Sometimes, she said quietly. The ones who hide their voice have the most to say. She turned and walked away before he could respond. For a moment, Sundar just stood there, confused. Why had her voice held something almost pained? He went back to his seat, his heart still pounding. The show continued around him, but he couldn't. His thoughts kept circling the old man from the alley, the note he had given him, and now this strange reaction from the music teacher. Who was he really? Was his voice just luck? Or had he opened something inside himself that he never knew existed? After the show ended, Sundar walked home under the soft glow of the street lamps. Rainwater still pooled on the roads, and his sandals squished with every step. The city was quiet, the usual chaos drowned by the thick evening mist. He took the long route, passing the temple and slipping into the narrow alley where he had practiced all week, but the old man wasn't there. He waited 15 minutes passed, then 30 nothing. The alley was empty, the shadows deeper than usual. Sundar finally walked home, feeling the first stirrings of disappointment. Part of him had hoped the man would be waiting, proud, ready to say something like, I told you so. But there was only silence. At home, his mother sat cross-legged on the floor, folding laundry. She looked up and smiled gently. I heard he sang? Yes, he said, sitting beside her. And they clapped? He nodded. She reached out and smoothed his hair. Then your heart must feel full. He wanted to tell her about the music teacher's strange words, about the old man and his mysterious advice. But something held him back. Instead, he asked, Do you remember if I ever sang when I was little? She paused, thoughtful. Only once. And you were 4. It was raining hard. The power had gone out. You sang to your sister to stop her from crying? He blinked. I don't remember that. You were shy even then, she said. smiling softly. But your voice was gentle, like rain itself. The next day at school, things were different. People noticed him. Boys who never spoke to him now greeted him in the hallway. Girls whispered and smiled. Teachers nodded in approval that even the 3 boys who had dared him to sing were suddenly friendly. Man, one of them said, "You really showed us." Sundar didn't know how to respond. He wasn't used to attention. It felt fragile, like holding glass with sweaty hands. One slip and it could shatter. During the lunch break, he found Ms. Rayalakshmi sitting alone near the music room. Her lunchbox sat unopened beside her, and she stared out the window, lost in thought. For reasons he didn't fully understand, he walked up to her. "Ma'am," he said softly, "can I ask you something?" She turned to him slowly, her face unreadable. Asterisk. "Did you mean what you said yesterday? About me hiding something?" She looked at him, and for the first time there was no sternness in her eyes, only memory. "When I was your age," she began slowly, "I sang once at a wedding. Just once. It was supposed to be a happy occasion, but the bride ran away that same night. For years, people said my voice had cursed the marriage. I stopped singing after that." Sundar was stunned. The idea that a voice could carry so much blame, so much fear, was hard to understand. "But that's not fair," he said. She nodded. "No, it wasn't. But fear rarely is." Then she leaned forward slightly. "Your voice. It carries pain and peace. That's not something you learn. It's something life gives you." Sundar's throat tightened. He wanted to ask more, how she knew, how she heard it, but just then, a shadow passed the doorway. A man stood there. He was tall, dressed in a gray uniform. A stranger. "Is there a student named Sundar Pichai here?" he asked. Ms. Rayalakshmi stood up quickly. "Yes, what's this about?" The man held out a small envelope. "I was told to deliver this. Someone left it with the front office." He handed it to Sundar. No name. No return address. Just one line on the front. "Do you want to know where your voice really comes from?" Sundar opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a map. A simple sketch. It showed a place not far outside the city. A music shop or maybe an old studio. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. The old man, Sundar stared at it, heart pounding. Was this his story beginning or unraveling? The bell rang. Students poured into the halls. The noise rose, but Sundar stood still, staring at the map. Because deep inside, he knew he had to follow it. Asterisk echoes behind the shuttered door. Next morning began like any other. The sky was heavy with clouds, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath and decided not to let go. Sundar sat through his classes with a growing storm inside him, his thoughts circling the envelope like moths around a candle flame. His textbooks remained open but unread. His teachers' voices came and went like waves against a distant shore. Again and again, his eyes drifted to his school bag, where the folded map rested quiet, waiting. By the time the final bell rang, Sundar had already made up his mind. He didn't go straight home. Instead, he took the bus going in the opposite direction, away from the familiar streets of Chennai, toward the faded outskirts that people rarely talked about. The bus coughed and groaned as it pulled through narrow roads lined with crumbling buildings, rusted signboards, and stray dogs that seemed to be guarding memories. Rather than streets, the map had shown a small square with a circle in the middle, a hand-drawn star marking a single shuttered building next to what looked like a temple pond. Sundar got off the bus 2 stops early just to walk the last stretch alone. His sandals slapped against the wet pavement. The smell of earth and rain mixed with something older, wood, dust, and a faint sweetness in the air, like someone had once played music here, and the notes had clung to the air long after the instruments had stopped. Down it, a narrow lane led to a faded blue building with a rusted shutter half closed. The paint had peeled away in long curls, and the letters above the entrance were barely legible. Ganapathy's musical instruments in repair. He stepped closer and knocked on the metal shutter. No answer. He waited. Knocked again. Then, just as he was about to turn away, he heard it. the soft creak of the shutter rising from within. Not all the way, just enough for someone to look out. Thought it was him, the old man from the alley, but this time he looked different, not just older. He looked afraid. You came, the man said, stepping back to let him in. Sundar ducked under the half-raised shutter and stepped inside. The shop was dim, lit only by shafts of light that spilled through cracks in the wooden roof. Old instruments hung from the walls like sleeping birds, veenas, flutes, harmoniums, and tablas. Everything smelled of age, of wood soaked in music and silence. I didn't think you'd send me anything. Sundar said. The old man nodded slowly. I had to. The moment you sang that night. I knew. Knew what? The man didn't answer. Instead, he walked toward a dusty table in the corner and pulled out a small wooden box. Years ago. He said, I knew someone who sang like you. Not the same voice, but the same feeling. Like the sound wasn't coming from the throat, but from somewhere deeper, from memory, from pain. He opened the box. Inside was a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Ancient but clean. Carefully preserved. Listen, he said, pressing a button. A crackle. Then a voice. Female. Soft. Clear. And achingly beautiful. Sundar felt something twist inside his chest. Not recognition, but a strange familiarity, like walking through a dream you didn't know you had. Who is that? He asked. The old man's face changed. He looked younger for a moment and sadder. My daughter, he said. Sundar blinked. What happened to her? The man looked away. She disappeared. Left one morning, didn't come back. Years later, I got a letter from a hospital far away. She had passed. No details, no reason. His voice cracked. But before she left, she recorded this. He took a deep breath. She was your mother's sister. Sundar froze. My aunt. The old man nodded. You have her voice, Sundar. Or something very close to it. Sundar staggered back a step. But my mother never mentioned. She couldn't. They had fought. Badly. Over something to do with music, I think. Your mother chose silence. Her sister chose sound. It split them. The old man sat down, tired. I didn't send you that. Note to praise your singing. I sent it to warn you. That voice, it carries a weight. It's not just talent. It's legacy. And legacy can bless or burden. Sundar sat down across from him. The air was thick with dust and something unspoken. But I don't understand, he whispered. How can a voice be a burden? Because people listen, the man said simply. And when people listen, they expect. They judge. They follow, or they destroy. Your aunt, she sang once at a rally. Her song moved people. It became something bigger, too big, and then it all collapsed. He looked at Sundar now with eyes that held years of worry. If you keep singing, Sundar, it will change things. And around you, you won't be able to go back. A long silence followed. Then Sundar spoke, slowly. But if I don't, it will stay inside. And I'll never know what it could have become. The old man looked at him, then smiled. You're just like her. They sat there for a while, the recorder still humming. When Sundar left, the old man gave him a small square object wrapped in cloth. Don't open it yet, he said. Not until you're ready to sing again. Outside, the sky had darkened. The storm was coming again. Sundar made his way home, the wrapped gift tucked deep in his bag. That night, he couldn't sleep. Images flickered behind his closed eyes. His aunt singing into the recorder, his mother folding laundry with a sad smile, the teacher with a voice cursed by a wedding gone wrong, and himself standing on a stage, unsure if the applause was real. What did it all mean? Was this a music or something bigger? As he lay there, the wind picked up, and with it, a new sound, a whisper from the window. 3 words. They know now. He sat, heart racing. Outside, in the streetlight's glow. A shape stood near the gate, not the old man, not a friend, someone watching. Then it was gone. Asterisk. The silence between the no test, the days that followed, were quiet on the surface. But beneath them, something had changed. Sundar began to notice small things at first. Footsteps that didn't match the people around him. Notebooks shifted slightly from where he left them. Whispers that stopped the moment he entered a room. It could have been his imagination. Maybe he was just paranoid. But he felt it like a string stretched tight in a space around him, humming with a tension no one else seemed to hear. He didn't tell anyone. Not his mother, not his teachers, not even the old man. Maybe he was afraid that saying it out loud would make it real. Instead, he focused on what he could control. He waited 3 more days before unwrapping the cloth-covered object the old man had given him. He did it late at night, long after his mother and sister had fallen asleep. The room was silent except for the slow tick of the wall clock and the occasional rustle of wind through the window. He sat cross-legged on the floor and peeled away the cloth, layer by layer. Careful not to tear anything. When the final fold came, away he froze. It was a small harmonium, old but clean. The wood was polished, and each key looked worn but lovingly used. A faded symbol was carved into the front, a simple swirl with a dot in the middle. He pressed one key. A low, trembling note filled the room. And then the silence after dot, the kind of silence that feels like a question waiting for an answer. Sundar had never played the harmonium before, but his fingers seemed to know where to go. He pressed another note, then another, then a soft, uncertain chord. A melody began to rise, not from memory, but from somewhere else. Maybe from inside the instrument, or maybe from the part of Sundar that had remained untouched until that moment. He played for nearly an hour, letting the music guide him, and then he sang. Not loudly. Not perfectly but with honesty again and again, until the clock struck midnight. Then he stopped, because suddenly he wasn't alone. Someone was standing at the door. His heart leapt. He turned quickly, but there was no one, only the door slightly ajar. He rushed to it, flung it open, stepped outside into the cold night. Nothing. Just the wind. And on the step, an envelope. He stared at it for a long time. Before picking it up, there was no name inside. A single note. Your voice opened something. It cannot be closed again. Meet us. A date. 2 days from now. Asterisk a time. 4 p.m. Place. One he didn't recognize. Bharati Hall, near the edge of the city. He should have been afraid, but he wasn't. Not exactly. It felt more like standing at the edge of a very deep well, knowing you were about to drop a stone, not to hear the echo, but to see if anything answered. Asterisk. The next day at school, he carried the note in his pocket like a secret. During lunch, he found himself wandering past the music room. Mr. Rayalakshi was there, alone, tuning a sitar. He watched her through the window for a moment. Something about the way her fingers moved, slow, careful, like brushing dust off a memory, made him pause. He stepped inside. She looked up, but didn't speak. He walked to the corner of the room, where an old harmonium sat. Do you mind if I try something? He asked. She nodded. He played at first, just a simple note. Then another. She watched him quietly. He began to sing. Not a song from any film. Not a bhajan. Something new. Something wordless. And as he sang, something shifted in her face. Her shoulders relaxed. Her eyes softened. When he stopped, there was a long pause. Then she said, "That is not a schoolboy's voice." He didn't reply. Instead, he pulled the envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. She read it slowly. When she finished, she looked up. "Don't go," she said. "Why?" "Because people who send notes like this don't want to be entertained. They want to use you." "For what?" She didn't answer, but he could see it in her eyes. Power, control, influence, double quotes, I have to know. He said. She hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Then don't go alone." But when the day came, Sundar didn't tell anyone he was going. Not because he didn't trust Ms. Rayalakshmi, but because deep down, he knew this was something he had to do himself. He arrived early. Bharati Hall stood like a forgotten palace. Its cracked columns wrapped in ivy, its windows long since broken or boarded up. The gate was half open, swinging lightly in the wind. Sundar stepped inside. The hall was dark and silent, the air thick with dust and the smell of old wood. And then, voices low, murmuring, coming from the far end of the hall. He followed them. Heart-pounding at the back of the hall was a smaller room. The door was slightly open. He pushed it gently. Inside were 5 people, seated in a half circle. Not police, not government, ordinary people. A woman with silver in her hair, a man with ink-stained hands, a boy no older than Sundar, with a scar on his cheek, and in the middle, a woman he had never seen before, but her eyes were familiar, too familiar. "You're Sundar," she said, standing up. He nodded. "Do you know why you're here?" "No." "Then, we'll show you." She turned to the others. "Play it." A projector hummed to life. On the wall, images began to flicker. Black and white. Grainy. A woman stood on a stage. Singing. Sundar single quotes. S-breath. Caught in his throat. It was her. The same voice from the tape. His aunt. Younger. Alive. Powerful. The room in the video was packed with people. All silent. Moved. Stirred. Then the film cut out. The screen went dark. "Your aunt started something," the woman said. "She believed voices could shape more than melodies. She believed they could move hearts, change minds, even fight injustice. She wasn't just a singer," the man with the ink-stained hand said. "She was a message." Sundar sat down slowly. "What do you want from me?" he asked. The woman smiled sadly. "Only what you already are." But before anyone could speak again, there was a loud knock on the door. Followed by a voice. Sharp. "Official, open up now." The group froze. "Someone followed you." The boy with the scar whispered. Another knock. Then a shout. "We know he's in there." Sundar looked around, panicked. "Go," the woman said. "That way. Now." She pointed to a door behind the curtain. "Don't stop. Don't speak. Just run." He ran. Through corridors filled with broken chairs and forgotten banners, through a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, until he burst into the sunlight. Panting, shaking, heart racing. He didn't stop until he was 3 streets away. Only then did he realize he was still holding the harmonium key, a single wooden note. The old man had slipped into his pocket days ago, but now he saw something etched into it, barely visible. "Sing when you're afraid. That's when it matters." Asterisk the voice they tried. To silence Sundar didn't sleep that night. He lay on his thin mattress with his eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, listening to the ceiling fan spin unevenly above him. Every few seconds, the fan made a soft clicking sound, small, harmless, but now it felt louder than thunder. It matched the rhythm of his thoughts, which came faster than he could catch. He had seen his aunt alive in that old video, heard the voice that somehow echoed inside his own, sat in a room with people who believed a song could change the world. And then men had come pounding at the door like it was a crime to remember her. A crime to feel something real. The world, it seemed, didn't just fear voices. It feared the truth they carried. He turned and saw the harmonium beside him, still open, as if waiting for his next breath to become melody. The wooden key the old man had given him now hung around his neck, strung through a bit of string he'd pulled from his school bag. The carving on it was clearer now. Not just a swirl. It was an ear. A symbol for listening. He understood. His aunt hadn't been dangerous because she sang loudly. She was dangerous because people listened and they felt. And when people feel too deeply, they begin to see the world differently. They begin to question. And sometimes that is all it takes to shake everything. He rose just before dawn, dressed quietly, and slipped out of the house. The streets were still sleeping. Dogs curled in doorways. Street vendors not yet stirring. Even the crows were silent. He went to the temple alley. The old man wasn't there. Not that day. Not the next. Gone. As if he had been nothing more than a shadow carved from memory. But Sundar knew better now. Nothing real ever disappears. It just moves into other forms. At school, things grew stranger. Whispers followed him in the hallways. Some curious, some sharp. A teacher he didn't know pulled him aside near the staff room. It's better not to ask too many questions, he said with a fake smile. One day, during lunch, two men in plain clothes stood at the gate and watched the students. They said they were with an educational review board, but they didn't ask any questions about books or marks. Only names, only voices. Ms. Rayalakshi began walking Sundar home after class. Not because she was assigned to, but because she knew. One afternoon, as they reached his street, she stopped him. Your aunt came to me once, she said quietly. Before she left the city, she asked if she could sing at the school's annual day. Did she? Sundar asked. I said no. The silence between them grew long. I was afraid, she said. He didn't answer. She looked at him, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. Don't be like me. That night, he opened his notebook and began to write. Not an essay. Not a story. A song. He didn't know what it would become. But he let the words pour out like water from a cracked jar, honest, messy, full of everything he'd felt and never said. He wrote about fear, about standing on stage with people laughing, about feeling seen then erased, about finding a voice he never asked for, and what it meant to carry it. By dawn, it was done. No chorus, no rhymes. Just truth. At school, the news came suddenly. The district was holding a citywide youth cultural festival, a celebration of student creativity and patriotism. Singers, dancers, artists, poets all invited. Sundar single quotes S name was listed under vocal solo. He hadn't signed up. He asked the principal about it. The man looked at him without blinking. Someone submitted your name, he said. Who? The principal said nothing, but Miss Rayalakshmi gave him a single nod when he passed her in the hall. He understood. She was giving him a stage. One more time. The festival was held in a giant open-air amphitheater, the kind built for celebrations larger than dreams. Massive white tents lined the edges. Cameras were everywhere. Officials in white shirts and badges roamed the grounds, smiling too widely. Backstage, performers tuned guitars, adjusted costumes, whispered last-minute prayers. Sundar sat alone, the harmonium at his side, the song folded in his lap like a secret. A young volunteer approached him. You're Sundar, right? He nodded. You're up third. Then she hesitated. One more thing. They said you can't sing anything political, or religious, or emotional. He looked at her. What else is there? She didn't answer. He stepped onto the stage 10 minutes later. The crowd was loud, distracted. Some people were chatting. Others looked at their phones. He sat behind the harmonium, adjusted the mic, stared out at the sea of faces. And began to play. The first few notes drifted over the crowd. Like miss, people didn't stop talking. And he sang the first line. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just honest. The words weren't about governments or gods. They were about a boy who stood at the edge of the stage, heart in his throat. Not sure if he was a joke or a voice. A boy who sang once because someone dared him, and kept singing because someone believed him. One by one, the murmurs faded. Then the crowd grew still. Phones were lowered. Eyes lifted. He sang of silence, of the spaces between words, of questions that had no answers but still needed to be asked. When he finished, there was no applause at first. Just stillness. Then someone stood. Clapped once. Asterisk twice. Then more joined. Within seconds, the amphitheater was filled with applause. Not loud, but steady, like rain falling on dry earth. Sundar bowed his head. But behind the lights, he saw them. Two men, near the edge of the tent, not clapping. Watching. Not with anger. With fear, because the voice they had tried to hide had found its way back into the world. And the world was listening. He walked off stage slowly. As he stepped backstage, a small envelope was slipped into his hand by someone. He didn't see. He opened it with shaking fingers. You sang the first verse. Now sing the chorus. We're waiting. No name. Asterisk. Just the symbol dot, the same swirl and dot carved into his harmonium. Asterisk the chorus. They tried to bury it. Envelope burned in Sundar's hand as he stepped away from the stage. The sound of applause still echoing like a heartbeat behind him. His fingers gripped the folded paper so tightly that it nearly tore. He stood alone under the canvas shadows of the backstage tent, eyes fixed on the ink that danced across the small square of paper. 4 words, simple, quiet, and terrifying in their weight. We're waiting for you. He read it again. And again. The swirl and dot symbol stared back at him like an open eye, watching, listening, remembering. It wasn't just a signature. It was a torch passed down in silence from his aunt, from the old man, from every voice that had once risen and been forced to fall dot and now was in his hands. Should have felt proud, brave, filled with purpose dot, but all Sundar felt was cold. A storm was coming. Not the kind that spilled from clouds, but the kind that moved through people, invisible, quiet, relentless. That evening, he went home early, said nothing to his mother. Ate dinner without a word. His sister told him he looked tired. He just smiled. But his mind was moving like a river in flood. That night, the rain returned. Gentle, like memory dot, he took out the harmonium again, placed it on the floor, lit a single candle, and opened the notebook. The melody was already inside him. He didn't have to write it. It moved through his fingers like breath. But the words, they were harder because this wasn't just a song anymore, dot. It was a risk, dot, a line drawn in his hand. If he sang what he truly felt, he knew the world would not stay quiet. There were people listening now, and not all of them wanted him to be heard. His mother knocked on his door, gently. "You're still awake?" She asked dot. He looked up dot, double quotes, just thinking. She sat beside him, her eyes soft with memory. "I know you think I kept things from you. About your aunt." He said nothing. "I was scared," she whispered. "She wasn't just my sister. She was everything I wanted to be. Brave, bold." She didn't ask permission to speak. She just sang, and people listened. Too many people. She looked away. One night, someone came to our house, told her to stop, said if she sang again, she'd never be heard from again. She laughed. She thought it was just talk. A pause. The next morning, she was gone. Sundar felt his throat close. "Why didn't you tell me?" His mother's eyes filled with tears. "Because I was afraid you'd become her." He reached out, took her hand. "I already am." And in that moment, she didn't try to stop him. She only nodded dot as if some unspoken weight between them had finally shifted. 2 days later, the final round of the cultural festival was announced that it would be held in the city's central auditorium. A huge event. Cameras, press, officials. A chance for young voices to celebrate the nation. Each school was allowed one representative. His name was chosen without discussion. He was no longer the quiet boy with broken sandals. He was the voice they couldn't ignore. But that meant he was also the boy they had to control. The day of the event came like a wave. Sundar arrived early. The auditorium was massive. Built like a shell of polished stone and curved glass, banners lined the entrance. Slogans in bright colors. A row of men in suits and white shirts stood at the gate, nodding stiffly at performers as they entered. He carried the harmonium in both hands. It felt heavier than before. When he reached the green room, a woman in navy blue sari met him. Her badge said she was part of the organizing committee. "You're Sundar?" He nodded. She leaned closer, lowered her voice. "Just a reminder," she said, with a practiced smile. "No political statements. No original lyrics. Stick to approved songs only." He met her gaze. "Why?" She blinked. "Because this is a celebration. But celebration without truth is just noise." Her smile faded. "Do you understand?" "I do," he said. "Good." She walked away. He sat on the bench, pulled out his notebook, and stared at the final lines of his song. The chorus. The words had come to him just the night before. They were simple and terrifying. "We are not asking permission. We are only remembering." What it feels like to feel had a choice now. Change the words or change the room. When his name was called, he walked onto the stage without hesitation. The lights blinded him. The crowd was massive. The panel of officials sat in front, hands folded, expressions unreadable. He sat behind the harmonium. Took a deep breath and played. He began with a soft melody, something safe, something familiar. A lullaby tune. The audience relaxed. Then he shifted. The key changed. The mood changed. The truth entered. He sang his song. His own words. His own rhythm. His own voice. He didn't shout. Didn't rage. Didn't accuse. He simply remembered. And made others remember too. Faces in the audience began to change. Some softened. Some frowned. A few. Officials leaned forward. But no one stopped him. Because the truth wrapped in a song cannot be touched by rules. By the time he reached the chorus, the auditorium was so quiet it felt like the world itself was listening. We are not asking permission. We are only remembering what it feels like to feel. Finished. Silence. Then footsteps. A man walked onto the stage. The same official who had been watching him since the first performance. He took the mic. The tension in the room was sharp. Enough to cut. He looked at Sundar. Then at the audience. Then he spoke. Young man, he said slowly. That was not the approved material. The room held its breath, but he paused. Perhaps we've approved the wrong things. A beat. Then the audience stood. Not in chaos. Not in protest. In recognition. In memory. In unity. In unity. Sundar bowed. He stepped down. Someone handed him a small envelope. Inside. You finished her song. Now begin your own. No signature. Just the swirl and asterisk.